There was a time when Jamie Dornan and Amelia Warner looked like everything Hollywood promised love could be: beautiful, grounded, and untouchable. Their red carpet smiles told the world a fairy tale was real. But what the cameras didn't capture was how that fairy tale slowly began to fracture under the weight of silence, distance, and a love that forgot how to speak. They met long before the world knew Jamie as the man behind Christian Grey, before fame carved his name into headlines and schedules. Back then, he was just another dreamer, shy, thoughtful, carrying that Irish warmth that made people lean in. Amelia was the calm to his storm, an artist who preferred melody over noise, sunlight over spotlight. Together, they built something pure, a home away from the chaos of fame. Jamie often said she was his anchor. "She's the reason I can breathe when everything else feels like drowning," he once told a friend. For years, their lives were painted in muted tones of happiness: quiet dinners, music in the garden, three little girls who carried both their smiles. From the outside, it looked effortless, the perfect balance of career and family. But inside those moments of stillness, something else was happening. A slow, invisible drift. As Jamie's fame skyrocketed after 50 Shades of Grey, the world stopped seeing him as a husband and father. He became an image, a fantasy, a name that sold millions of tickets. With every red carpet, every interview, every rumor linking him to his on-screen partner Dakota Johnson, Amelia's world grew quieter. She never liked the limelight, but now it followed her everywhere, even into her private fears. Friends noticed subtle changes. Amelia stopped attending premieres. Jamie's laughter in interviews sounded rehearsed. Behind the scenes, the little gestures, the touch on the shoulder, the shared glance, faded. They were both trying to protect what they had, but in doing so, they stopped being honest with each other. He was always away, filming in faraway cities, living other lives through other characters. She stayed home, holding their world together with lullabies and patience. But love can't live forever on memory alone. You have to keep choosing it, every day, every breath. And somewhere along the line, they stopped making that choice together. Rumors began to swirl. Whispers about strain, jealousy, loneliness. Some said Amelia felt overshadowed. Others claimed Jamie was torn between two worlds: the family man he wanted to be and the actor the world demanded. He denied everything publicly, and Amelia, ever the private soul, said nothing. Silence became their shared language. There was one evening, according to a close friend, when it became clear something was breaking. Jamie returned from a long shoot. The children were asleep. The house was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. He sat down at the kitchen table, expecting warmth, laughter, forgiveness. Instead, there was distance, an emotional fog too thick to cross. They spoke politely, carefully, as if afraid the wrong word might shatter the fragile peace between them. He reached out, but she didn't move closer. Instead, she whispered, "You don't look at me the way you used to." That sentence, simple yet devastating, hung in the air. And Jamie, the man who could act out 1,000 emotions on screen, had no script for this moment. He didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. From then on, their love became a performance neither wanted to keep playing. They smiled for the cameras, posed for family photos, and shared holidays, but it was all choreography. Beneath the surface, there was exhaustion. Not from anger, but from trying too hard for too long. Even those closest to them sensed the end approaching, though no one dared speak it aloud. They stopped looking at each other the way they used to, one family friend confessed. It wasn't dramatic, it was quiet, like two people realizing the ocean between them had grown too wide. Yet, as painful as that distance was, the truth behind it was far more complicated than anyone imagined. It wasn't just fame, or distance, or exhaustion. There was something deeper. Something Amelia once vowed she would never forgive. And that truth was about to surface. The truth came quietly, not as a scandal splashed across tabloids, but as a whisper between two hearts that had run out of ways to protect each other. For months, Amelia had sensed that something wasn't right, a shift in Jamie's eyes, a hesitation in his voice when she asked if he was happy. He had grown distant, not cruel, but unreachable, like a man trapped behind a glass wall. And one day, the glass finally cracked. Jamie had been carrying a secret, not an affair in the way the world might imagine, but an emotional absence that cut just as deep. He had been lost inside the roles he played, unable to find his way back to the man Amelia married. The intensity of his characters, the constant emotional exposure, the demand to connect deeply with people on screen. It all left pieces of him scattered. And Amelia, though she tried to understand, couldn't bear to keep loving someone who was no longer really there. When she confronted him, there were no shouts, no slammed doors. Only tears, quiet and endless. She asked him if he still loved her, and he said yes, but not in the way he used to. That single admission broke something that had survived every storm before. "I love you for what we were," he said, his voice shaking, "but I don't know how to be that man anymore." Amelia left that night, not with anger, but with an unbearable calm. She packed her things, kissed her daughters goodnight, and drove away from the house that had once been their sanctuary. Jamie didn't follow. He stood by the window, watching the headlights disappear into the dark, realizing that silence was now the loudest sound in his life. In the days that followed, the media turned their pain into headlines, "The perfect couple no more." But behind the sensational words was a quieter, more human story. They were two people who had tried to save something sacred until it was too heavy to carry. Jamie buried himself in work, showing up to sets with tired eyes and forced smiles. Amelia stayed away from the spotlight, finding comfort in music and her children. They didn't speak for weeks. And yet, love doesn't simply vanish. It lingers, in photographs, in songs, in the way their daughters laugh. Jamie once said in an interview, months after the separation, that, "You never stop loving someone who shared your soul. You just learn to live with the ache." It wasn't bitterness in his voice, but regret, the kind that comes when you finally understand what you lost too late. Friends say that one evening, Amelia sent Jamie a short message. It wasn't about reconciliation or blame. It read, "I hope you find peace in what you couldn't give me." For a long time, he stared at those words, realizing that forgiveness sometimes comes wrapped in finality. There were, of course, rumors that another woman had come between them, that Amelia couldn't handle Jamie's fame, that Dakota Johnson had played a part. But those who truly knew them understood the real reason. They had loved deeply, but they had grown into different versions of themselves. The man Jamie had become no longer fit the life they once built. And Amelia, strong and self-aware, refused to live in a love that had turned into nostalgia. In one of his rare vulnerable moments during an interview, Jamie said, "People think heartbreak is loud, but it's not. It's waking up one day and realizing the laughter is gone." That line touched millions because it wasn't about celebrity or scandal. It was about being human. Months later, they were seen together again, not as lovers, but as parents, walking hand in hand with their daughters through a quiet London park. No bitterness, no tension. Just two souls who once shared everything, now bound by a gentler kind of love. The world saw a divorced couple, but in truth, they were simply learning how to love each other differently. The story of Jamie Dornan and Amelia Warner isn't about betrayal or failure. It's about the fragility of love in a world that demands perfection. It's a reminder that even the strongest hearts can crack under silence, and that sometimes, letting go is the most honest form of love there is. Because love doesn't always end with goodbye. Sometimes it stays. In the echo of a laugh, the memory of a touch, the quiet understanding that what they had was real. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough.